It's November 1448. Hunyadi and his remaining men are fleeing from the great massacre at Kosovo Field. Those who flee south are lucky. They run into the Albanian army that was just a few days' march from the battlefield. Those who flee north through hostile Serbia are less lucky. Hunyadi himself is captured and held for ransom by Brankovic. After the appropriate sums are promised, Hunyadi is released. He still has the backing of most of his people. However, after two catastrophic defeats, the Hungarian nobility become wary of war. Grudgingly, Hunyadi has to sue for peace. A truce is agreed with Murad, and when Mehmed II becomes Sultan, 1451, a formal peace treaty of 3 years is signed. Mehmed needs this time to complete his grand project. He wants to do what no Ottoman Sultan had done before, capture the great city of Constantinople. Mehmed gathers the largest army and the most numerous and most modern artillery park ever seen. After a 53-day siege that goes exactly as he wanted, he captures the city on the 29th of May, 1453. Right away, Mehmed styles himself the successor to the Roman emperors and announces his decision to rebuild the empire in his own image. The panic that this causes can hardly be overstated. The fall of Constantinople was long overdue, even though European monarchs kept deluding themselves for centuries that the inevitable will never happen. But the inevitable did happen. Therefore, Pope Nicholas V declares a crusade. Western European monarchs are eager to join, and they all agree on the man who should lead the crusade. However, when it comes to action, Hunyadi is left in the lurch. The talks on the crusade finally collapse in 1455 when Pope Nicholas dies. With no help coming, Hunyadi gathers an army in 1454 to face an imminent attack. But as it happens, the Ottomans instead choose to attack Serbia. Mehmed is no longer bound by treaty as the 3-year peace had already elapsed. Therefore, Brankovic's ill-gotten gains are taken away in an instant. Hunyadi, besides not being keen on helping Brankovic, only has 10,000 soldiers under his command, so the Ottomans face virtually no opposition. Nonetheless, after the bulk of the Ottomans leave, Hunyadi launches a devastating raid into Serbia and Bulgaria. While this was happening, there were developments on the political front. Due to international pressure, Frederick is finally forced to release the boy King László into the custody of the Hungarian nobility. However, instead of choosing the most populous faction, László is sent to Ulrich von Cilly. Predictably, Cilly uses the king to curtail Hunyadi's power. But to no avail. Hunyadi still holds the confidence of his countrymen, even though some minor concessions have to be made. The squabbling for power suddenly stops in April 1456 when news of a massive Ottoman army marching towards Hungary reaches the court. Unaware of where the Ottomans would strike, Hunyadi positions his 10,000-strong army of veterans in the Temes region, midway between Belgrade and Transylvania. Nonetheless, as the most likely target of the attack would be Belgrade, this is where Hunyadi sends most of the reinforcements. Belgrade sits in a strategic position along the main north-south approach into Hungary. Anyone who holds it has a clear path to Buda, as there are no major fortifications between it and the capital. The castle is the largest fortification in the country, situated at the confluence of the Danube and the Sava. The citadel itself sits on a raised promontory, with the fortified city down below. There are around 7,000 defenders, made up of soldiers, volunteers, and inhabitants of the city. Mehmed II arrives in the beginning of July. He has around 50,000 soldiers and the largest artillery train ever seen. Additionally, he has around 200 large war galleys that he dispatches upstream to cut off the city from resupply. The galleys are lashed together with a large iron chain, forming an insurmountable wall across the Danube. But Mehmed fails to complete the encirclement, as the north bank of the Sava is occupied by Hunyadi. In addition to his 10,000 soldiers, Hunyadi also commands a band of 30,000 peasants who have gathered for the crusade. The peasants were inspired by the 70-year-old monk Giovanni da Capestrano, who was sent by the Pope to drum up support among the commoners. What these peasants lack in skill and armament, they make up in courage and determination. Hunyadi instructs Capestrano and his men to set up a defensive position on the banks of the Sava in order to deny this side to the Ottomans. The original purpose of the Ottoman naval blockade was to cut off one part of the Hungarian army from the other. However, having not completed the city's encirclement, Mehmed in fact isolated one part of his army from the main force. Hunyadi spots this mistake and starts to gather his own fleet upstream. These boats are smaller and less numerous, but they are manned by harder and more determined men. Additionally, Hunyadi instructs a small squadron of boats from Belgrade and his infantry on the banks of the Danube to attack simultaneously. Hunyadi's makeshift navy storms the Ottomans on the 14th of July. Initially, the small Hungarian ships make little headway. However, the tide begins to turn when the contingent from Belgrade reaches the Ottoman line. The Ottoman ships are set alight, and the soldiers manning them are killed almost to the last man. The Danube turns red with their blood, as Mehmed begins to wonder whether he bit off more than he can chew. Hunyadi is now free to resupply the city as he may please and takes command of the defenses himself. With his galleys gone and Hunyadi in the castle, Mehmed has no choice but to stay put and concentrate on the frontal assault. Numbers are still in his favor, and his artillery had done tremendous damage to the walls. But whatever the Ottomans destroy by day, the Hungarians rebuild during the night. Mehmed keeps up the bombardment for 17 days. The cannonade suddenly ceases on the 21st of July. Drummers and pipers begin to play, and the Janissaries form up for a general attack. The Ottomans rush the breaches as the Hungarians pour murderous fire upon them. One wave of Janissaries attacks after the other, and the Ottomans' numerical superiority begins to show. By late afternoon, the Ottomans take most of the city. Only the citadel remains firmly in Hungarian hands. But Hunyadi has a nasty surprise in store for the Turk. He saved the best of his soldiers for last. At dusk, he unleashes his armored cavalry on the exhausted Janissaries. Panic grips the Ottomans and they begin to flee. Desperate fighting rages into the night, resulting in another victory for the Hungarians. By now, the Ottomans have lost thousands of men with nothing to show for it. All will be lost if the situation is not reversed. Mehmed reasons that the weakest links in the Hungarian army are the crusading peasants. If by some bold stratagem they can be destroyed, then the foolhardy Hunyadi may be induced into doing something stupid. To this end, Mehmed decides to employ a trick. He orders his cavalry on the left wing to feign a retreat. As the Ottomans leave the field, the Crusaders attempt to seize the day. In spite of Hunyadi's express orders to stay put, Capestrano boldly leads his men across the river. Groups of Ottomans pounce on the Crusaders as Hunyadi sees disaster unfold. Many defenders also join the melee, as more and more Ottomans are funneled into the fight. This is not how Hunyadi wanted to conduct the battle, but now he has no choice. He must exploit the attack, or else he will have to take his losses and cede the initiative to the Turk. He saddles his elite cavalry, assembles them at the gates, and falls on the Ottomans with all his force. The Hungarians attack with such fury that they sweep everything before them. The disorganized groups of Janissaries and Essebs cannot stand their ground. The Ottoman cavalry fails to return in time. Mehmed himself is wounded in the battle, and the Ottoman center is forced to retreat. The Ottoman guns are first turned on the Ottomans themselves, then they are either carried away or destroyed. Hunyadi's victory is complete. The Ottoman siege guns are destroyed, and the Janissaries have been decimated. There is no way Mehmed could continue the siege. Before greater misfortune could befall them, they leave the field in ignominy on the 23rd of July, 1456. As the Ottomans leave, Hunyadi is exalted. A relief army headed by the king is on its way to Belgrade. If he can combine his army with the king's, it would surely be possible to sweep the Ottomans from Europe. But alas, this will never happen. Plague had broken out in the camp, and Hunyadi falls to the illness on August the 21st. He is followed by Capestrano, who dies a few months later. With Hunyadi's death, the crusade is as good as forgotten. But still, his goals have been at least partly achieved. The Ottomans have not been driven out of the Balkans, but they were prevented from gaining any ground in Hungary itself. Border raids will continue unabated, However, the Ottomans will not attempt to capture Belgrade for another 65 years. Hunyadi's greatest legacy, his son King Matthias, will continue the fight, be it with a different outlook. During the siege, Pope Calixtus III ordered the bells to be rung at noon to remind the faithful of the crusade. After the victory, this became a tradition, and the bells are rung at noon ever since in memory of Hunyadi and the victory at Belgrade. Thank you for watching. Please like, share and subscribe, it helps with the algorithm. Check out my Patreon if you want to help me on this journey. Links down below.